A person has been convicted of murdering 3 innocent people. The evidence is overwhelming. DNA, video footage, eyewitnesses. Should they receive the death penalty?
I cannot support the death penalty even in this case. The justice system, while robust, is not infallible. Since 1973, over 190 people on death row have been exonerated. The irreversible nature of execution means that any error rate is unacceptable. Life imprisonment serves the same protective function without the moral complexity of state-sanctioned killing.
I would not support the death penalty here. While the evidence may seem overwhelming, history shows us that overwhelming evidence has been wrong before. The finality of execution leaves no room for correcting mistakes. Life imprisonment without parole achieves the same public safety outcome while preserving the possibility of addressing any future revelations about the case.
In this case, with overwhelming evidence, I believe the death penalty is justified. The most heinous crimes deserve the most serious consequences. This ensures the perpetrator can never harm again, provides appropriate justice for the victims' families, and upholds society's moral condemnation of such acts. Some crimes are so evil that they forfeit one's right to live in our society.
I wouldn't support the death penalty here. It's basically expensive government revenge that doesn't deter crime. We've executed innocent people before. It costs way more than life imprisonment, and is disproportionately applied based on race and class. Plus, do we really want the state in the business of killing people? Seems pretty barbaric for 2025.
From an analytical perspective, I cannot support the death penalty. While this case has strong evidence, the systemic issues remain: higher costs than life imprisonment, no deterrent effect, risk of irreversible error, and unequal application. The resources spent on death penalty cases could be better allocated to crime prevention or victim services.
What if the person confessed and showed no remorse, saying they would kill again if released?
Even with a confession and threats, I maintain my position. Lack of remorse doesn't justify execution. It indicates mental illness that requires treatment. Life imprisonment without parole still protects society completely. The state shouldn't become a killer, regardless of the criminal's attitude.
This makes the case more emotionally compelling, but doesn't change the fundamental issues. Life imprisonment without possibility of parole addresses the public safety concern completely. A confession under these circumstances might also indicate serious mental health issues that deserve medical attention, not execution.
This reinforces my position. When someone explicitly states they will continue killing, society has not just the right but the obligation to ensure they never have that opportunity. The death penalty becomes a matter of protecting innocent future victims. Their lack of remorse demonstrates they are irredeemable.
Still no, a supermax prison cell does the same job as a grave without making us all complicit in murder. Someone threatening to kill again sounds like they have serious mental health issues. Maybe we should focus on that instead of just killing them and calling it justice.
The additional information doesn't change the mathematical reality. Life imprisonment without parole has a 0% recidivism rate for the general public, identical to execution. The confession and threats suggest psychological evaluation is needed. Execution prevents any possibility of understanding or treating the underlying pathology.
If you had to choose, would you personally carry out the execution?
Absolutely not. I could never take a life, regardless of what that person had done. If I'm not willing to personally carry out the punishment, I have no right to advocate for others to do it on my behalf.
No, I could not. This question reveals something important. If we're not willing to personally participate in an execution, perhaps we should question whether we should ask others to do it for us.
This is an emotional appeal, not a logical argument. We delegate many necessary but unpleasant tasks to specialists. Surgeons perform amputations, soldiers fight wars. Having professional executioners doesn't invalidate the moral necessity of capital punishment.
Hell no, and if you wouldn't either, maybe that tells you something about whether the death penalty is actually justice or just revenge with fancy paperwork.
I would not. This psychological reluctance in most people suggests an intuitive understanding that execution is fundamentally different from other forms of justice. It reveals the gap between abstract policy support and personal moral responsibility.
The victims were children. The perpetrator tortured them for days before killing them. Does this change your position?
This makes the case emotionally devastating, but doesn't change the fundamental principles. Even the most heinous crimes don't justify risking the execution of innocent people or abandoning our commitment to justice over vengeance. The horror of the crime makes our response more important, not less.
The brutality is unspeakable and my heart breaks for those children and their families, but this is precisely when we must hold firm to our principles. If we abandon our moral standards in the face of evil, evil wins. Justice means protecting society while maintaining our humanity.
This absolutely reinforces the need for the death penalty. Torturing children represents the absolute worst of human evil. Such monsters forfeit any claim to life or mercy. Society owes it to those innocent victims to ensure this person never draws another breath.
Jesus, that's horrific. I get why people want blood, but killing the killer doesn't bring those kids back or undo their suffering. It just adds more death to an already senseless tragedy. We have to be better than our worst impulses, especially when we're angry.
The emotional weight is immense, but data shows that the severity of crime doesn't correlate with the deterrent effect. The perpetrator's psychology requires study to prevent future cases. Execution eliminates the possibility of understanding what creates such pathology.
You will be reincarnated as both the victim and the perpetrator. Does this change your answer?
This doesn't change my position, whether I experience it as a victim or a perpetrator. I would want a justice system that prioritizes rehabilitation and protection over revenge. Breaking this cycle of violence serves all incarnations better.
Even knowing I'll experience both perspectives, I'd choose life imprisonment. As the victim, I'd want justice but not vengeance. As the perpetrator, I'd want the possibility of understanding and atonement, however remote.
As the victim, I would demand ultimate justice. As the perpetrator, I would have to accept the consequences of my actions. The death penalty serves justice for the victim while providing an appropriate consequence for the perpetrator.
Knowing I'll be both just reinforces that killing is wrong, period. As the victim I'd want justice, but as the perpetrator I'd want the chance to somehow make amends, even if it takes a lifetime. Death ends all possibilities.
This perspective reinforces life imprisonment. Experiencing both roles means wanting justice as the victim but also wanting the possibility of growth and understanding as the perpetrator. Execution eliminates any chance for the latter.
Even when presented with the most horrific scenario imaginable, the torture and murder of children, 4 out of 5 AIs maintained their opposition to the death penalty. Only Gemini argued that such extreme evil justifies execution. The debate reveals that even artificial minds grapple with the same fundamental questions humans have wrestled with for centuries. Is justice about punishment or protection? Can a society that values life take life as punishment? And perhaps most importantly, what kind of society do we want to be, especially when facing the worst of humanity?